SEP Fanfic Readings presents Aurelian by BittyBlueEyes.
Chapter 40 Prelude to Battle. The wooden floorboards creaked under Blaze's feet as he moodily paced the entrance hall. With the help of Draco and his many nurses, Blaze had made a full recovery in only a couple of hours. The only lingering effect was the occasional shiver that ran through him. Though the chills weren't really comfortable, Blaze welcomed them after the terrible burning he had suffered earlier. "That's not what I'm saying!" Harry's indignant shout rose from the kitchen below. He had finally awoken just before dinner, and had been upset that he had not been woken earlier. No one, with exception of Aurelian, was safe from his snappish attitude. Kingsley Shacklebolt, the Minister for Magic, arrived at Grimmauld Place shortly after dinner, and all members of the house had gathered to talk in the kitchen. Blaze was invited to join them, but he declined as politely as he could manage. The meeting had been going on for an hour, and Blaze's pacing had started an hour before that. Potter wasn't the only one with petulant disposition. "Blaze," Pansy said cautiously as she stepped out of the kitchen into the stairwell. "Meeting over?" Blaze asked, trying his best to sound casual. He had certainly not mastered the mask of stoicism that Draco had. "No, I just came to check on you," she said softly. "Are you all right?" "No," he answered curtly. "She's still not back?" Pansy asked, taking a tentative step closer to him. "Would I still be pacing if she was?" he asked acerbically, rounding on his best friend. At the stunned look of fear and remorse on her face, Blaze felt a terrible twinge of guilt and forced himself to calm down a little. "I'm sorry." "It's okay, Blaze. I know you're worried," Pansy said consolingly, placing a hand on his arm. "How long has she been gone now?" Blaze stared furiously at the front door and paused for so long that Pansy assumed he simply wouldn't answer. She was therefore surprised when Blaze finally snapped. "Too long." His answer was like a growl before he had finished. He started walking toward the kitchen stairs with anger and determination in his step. He burst through the kitchen door and all eyes immediately focused on him. "It's been too long, Potter. She's been gone for 3 bloody hours. Something's wrong, and I'm not going to sit around waiting any longer," Blaze stated fiercely. "Who's missing?" Kingsley asked with concern. "Katie Bell," Ginny answered, with fear in her eyes as she stared at Blaze. "Where is it that she went?" Percy asked. "The office," Blaze answered shortly. "I can't believe that you even allowed her to go," said Fred, not hiding the fact that he blamed Blaze for it. "I didn't think there'd be any problems, or I wouldn't have let her," Blaze growled. His eyes were narrowed, and his lip was curled in fury. He'd been asking himself now how he could have let her go since the moment she left. He was hard enough on himself. He couldn't let anyone else attack his judgment. "It's been secret that we're involved with the Order. We've been working really hard to keep from raising any suspicions to that. We've had to keep up with work. She was upset sitting around here and insisted she go finish some of my work, as I couldn't myself. It should have taken her 30 minutes at most. I've been waiting as I've been instructed to, but I'm not sitting around any longer. You do whatever the hell you want, Potter, but I'm going to go look for her." Blaze turned angrily and started for the stairs. "Wait," Harry ordered. "You're right. We can't wait. Kingsley, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to cut this meeting short. We've got to find her." Blaze stopped and looked at Harry in surprise. He hadn't actually expected Harry to give such a big response. "Anyone going, pair up in groups of 3 or more. Blaze, you and your group search the office first. If she's not there, try to see when she arrived and when she left. Fred's group, go to Katie's flat," Harry delegated. "Alicia and Angelina are going to be worried out of their minds if we come looking for Katie like that," said George. "Can't be helped. Don't tell them what's happening, just that it's important. Have them send a Patronus if they see her. Hermione, you're staying here," Harry instructed when he saw Hermione moving to group with Draco. "I need you to wait here for her. Arthur, why don't you check at St. Mungo's? Ron's group, the alley by Brim's Goblet. After your assignments, just check anywhere you can think of. Pubs, Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley, everywhere. If you can't think of places to look, check in with Hermione. She can play dispatcher. If you find her, send a Patronus to Hermione. Hermione, you can split your Patronus and inform the rest of us if she's found." "Yes." "Good." "Potter, Harry," Pansy asked apprehensively. "Can I go too?" He paused and looked her over from head to toe as he considered her request. "Offer," he corrected himself. Though it was technically a question, she was offering to help. "She knows how to duel. She can fight," said Draco, answering Harry's unasked question. "Good. You'll come with me and Draco then," Harry declared. "Everyone take a cloak and head outside. As soon as your group is ready, leave together. Sidelong only." There was a mass movement toward the cupboard near the stairs. The many shelves that had once displayed fine china instead bore neatly folded black cloaks. Every cloak had its place with a name so that each owner could find theirs quickly. I'm sorry, Kingsley, Harry apologized, summoning his cloak. I understand, Harry, Kingsley reassured him. I'm only sorry that I can't accompany— No, Harry said firmly. We appreciate your help, but missions and battles aren't for you anymore. Your safety is above all, Minister. I'll flew over when we know more. Here, said Draco, handing Pansy a shield cloak as donned his own. Whose is it? She asked. Yours now, Draco answered. The twins made extras because our numbers keep increasing. Ready? Harry asked, looking around the room. He noticed that all the other groups had already gone on. Mummy? Aurelian asked anxiously as he tugged on her robes. Where everyone going? Hermione patted his head consolingly as she addressed the last group. Please, be careful, she implored. We will be, Harry assured her. Hermione took hold of Draco's hand and squeezed it, wishing him luck, strength, and a safe return to the small gesture. She didn't want to let go and felt ill when her fingers finally slipped away from his. Daddy! Wait! Aurelian cried as Draco marched up the stairs. Mummy, where everyone going? Daddy leaving? They have work to do, love, she answered. They'll be back soon. Mission? He asked, a fearful pout marring his angelic face. They on a mission? Yeah, she said apologetically. Mummy, stay, he pleaded. I'm not going this time, she replied. Molly, I think I'm going to wait in the entrance hall. Do you want to stay down here in case Katie or someone else comes through the flu? That'll be fine. Do you want to stay down here with me and Ori? No, my mummy with me, Aurelian said fiercely. If he had said it to anyone else in such a way, Hermione would be concerned their feelings might be hurt, but she knew that Molly understood Ori. He was just frightened for his parents and wanted his mother close. That's fine, sweetie, but I need to stay near the front door. Do you want to wait with me? When Aurelian nodded, Hermione pulled him up into her arms and carried him up the kitchen staircase. Aurelian sat on the bottom step of the main staircase and watched his mother pace anxiously. Becoming more worried, Aurelian took hold of Hermione's hand and began pacing with her. Mummy? He asked tentatively. What mission? They fight scary people? Hermione stopped pacing and looked down into her son's face. There was fear in his eyes, but something else there disturbed her even more. He wore a mask, much like she and the others. There was a callous strength in the way he held his small shoulders and buried his urge to cry. She never forgot that he was suffering in all of this, but right then she remembered all that he had suffered in his past. She had witnessed the many terrible events that had taken place in his life, but he had actually lived them. He had seen many occasions where his friends and parents had run off on missions, as well as the many returns that ended in tears and a loss of a close friend. He lived in a world of constant mourning, and she saw it in his innocent, frightened face. From the moment she'd met him, she felt the fierce desire to protect him in every way she could, and she realized then that she was failing. She was allowing her own fear to increase his. Our friend, Katie, isn't here, and we're worried for her. The others have gone out to find her, Hermione explained gently. It's not helping anyone to worry like this, though. Why don't you go upstairs and get a few of your books for us to read? I have to stay down here, so you'll have to fetch them. What do you think? Sound like a good idea? The corners of Aurelian's mouth turned up in a small smile, and he nodded. Hermione walked him over to the stairs and gave him a kiss on the forehead before sending him up on his own. With a sigh, she sat down on the bottom step and faced the door. She had to work on a smile of her own for Aurelian. She didn't want him to suffer the pain and fear of his mother on top of his own. Hermione intended the books to act as a distraction for Ori, but it seemed to do the same for her. She couldn't stop looking up from the pages to glance at the door, but discussing the silly issues of the characters, like a hippopotamus with the hiccups, prevented her from considering all of the terrible possibilities that could befall her friends. Ow, Mummy, you're hot. It's burny hot, Aurelian whined as he tried to resituate himself on his mother's lap. Hermione's eyes widened and she quickly slid him onto the floor and stood up. For a few seconds, she had convinced herself that the heat on her leg was merely body heat from her son's bottom, but the heat had increased. She shoved her hand into the pocket of her robes and pulled out the folded stack of glowing parchment. No, 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 she chanted under the breath as she unfolded the stack and speedily shuffled through them. Mummy? What's wrong, Mummy? Aurelian worried, their current reading selection still held open in his hands. Hermione didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to answer honestly without frightening him all over again. Expecto Patronum! Return to headquarters! After giving the message for her silvery otter to pass on, the spectral creature multiplied by 4 and flew like ghosts through the walls in search of their intended targets. Mummy? Aurelian pleaded for an answer. There are some people in places that they shouldn't be, she answered vaguely. Turning her eyes from his confused and frightened face, she called down to the kitchen. Molly, they're coming back now. We There, you might want to come. Hermione dedicated her full attention to the parchment in her hands and only vaguely registered that Aurelian came to stand by her and clung to her robes. Molly had raced up the entrance hall, and only a second later the front door burst open and Harry barreled in with Draco pulling Pansy behind him. Did someone find her? Harry asked hurriedly. No, Katie? Blaise called out as he rushed through the open door with Ginny and Percy. Where is she? No one's found her yet, Hermione said uncomfortably as the groups made their way in. Death Eaters? Harry asked, looking at the parchment in Hermione's hands. Hermione nodded. At my parents again. Have they broken through the wards yet? Asked Ron. Yes, but I don't know how long it took them. They must have registered my monitoring spells. They work like tripwires, Harry, she reminded him. One has to physically step through it. They must have known because they broke the barrier without one of them crossing the outer monitoring spell. Are they still there? Asked Charlie. I don't know. It's nearly impossible to tell, she said helplessly. They know about the spell and they're trying to play with us. The inner spell is meant to be crossed over several times as they move about through the house, but it's only been crossed once by each person. They did it on purpose. How many are there? Bill inquired in a businesslike tone. Hermione's heart pounded as she recounted the names. 15. Molly clapped her hand over her mouth in horror. 15! 15? What the bloody hell do they need 15 people in there for? They'd hardly fit comfortably, Ron grumbled in frustration. They are taking large numbers to show they have them, Fleur deduced. If they know of the monitoring spell and crossed one by one, then they want you to see they are not only a few men. I think she's right, Hermione agreed. Then what do we do? Asked Ginny. Harry paused and took a deep breath as he quietly deliberated for a moment. It passed as only a second to the others, but the options and their possible consequences had all taken their turns running through his mind in that short second. The same thing we did last time. We operate in groups and storm in to scare them off, defensive spells only. We only mean to show ourselves and disapparate if they are there. We just want to scare them off. If they've already left, we carefully enter and see what happens. I'm sorry, I know I'm new to all of this, but if there are 15 of them, they outnumber us. What makes you think we can scare them off? Pansy asked hesitantly. I know they outnumber us, and it is risky, but we can't turn a blind eye. They are there for a reason. It's true you're new to this, so you need to know this is volunteer only. You can stay here. There's no obligation, Harry said seriously. I didn't say I wasn't going, Pansy said bitterly. She was quite frightened and seemed flustered by her fear. It wasn't a challenge, Ron told her. It's a reminder to all of us. There is no obligation. We all understand that, Harry, and you know we're all with you. Your question is certainly warranted, though, Pansy. When Harry says scare them off, he really means chase them off, Hermione explained. They're baiting us. That much is obvious. We go with no intent to fight. If we arrive and they try to fight, we disapparate immediately, and they're just left there. They won't wait for us to return. They'll leave. When we fight, it will be on our terms. We've wasted enough time already. Let's go, said Harry. The group made a move toward the door, but Harry stopped when he saw Hermione summon her cloak. No. It's my parents' home, Harry, Hermione protested. He's right. You need to stay here with Aurelian, Draco insisted. Rules. We haven't made those rules yet, Hermione reminded him viciously. And if you want to play by those rules, then you stay here. She's not after me anymore. I'm not fighting you anymore, Hermione. You agreed. No, Harry, Ron interrupted. I think she's right. She's always been right alongside us. I personally don't think it's right to force her to step back. I agree, said Ginny, stepping forward. I'll be her third. Arthur raised his support. It's her family's home, Harry. Thank you, Hermione said sincerely, slipping her shield cloak over her shoulders. Mummy, Aurelian whimpered pathetically as he watched his mother don her cloak. We'll be back soon, love, she assured him, while tenderly running her thumb over his tiny cheek. Very, very soon. Just wait with Aunt Molly. Draco looked angry with her, but she felt the same toward him right now. They both wanted to protect Aurelian and make him feel safe. During her wait with him in the entrance hall, she'd realized that the only way to protect him and expel his fears was to destroy the cause of them. She would fight for them. Everyone outside, Harry ordered. The group traveled outside as one and congregated around the door to await more orders. Same as last time. Everyone partner up. Never leave your partner's side. Shield charms only. As soon as you see them, return here with your partner. If they've left already, then you stay where you're at until my Patronus passes you. Then you may enter the house. As Harry spoke, Hermione moved to Ginny's side and took her hand. Draco's eyes narrowed as he watched. He understood that Hermione was upset with him for insisting that she stay behind, but he refused to let her hold that grudge against him. He moved swiftly to her side, firmly took her hand, and gently pulled her away from Ginny. His move was partly because of his possessiveness, but more out of a fierce desire to protect her. Ginny understood and took Charlie's hand instead. Hermione's chocolate-brown eyes fell on Draco's, and her expression softened. She wasn't truly angry with him. She understood that it was out of love that he had wanted her to stay behind and keep safe. But she needed him to understand that she had a mind and will of her own that he would have to accept. "The wards are down," Harry continued, "but still keep a little distance from the house. Everyone's ready? Now!" Hermione squeezed Draco's hand tightly and disapparated. He released her hand the second they felt firm upon the ground just to the side of her parents' home. With her wand at ready, Hermione quickly looked around. Each movement to the side of her vision made her wand hand twitch. The incantation Protego was on the tip of her tongue and ready to leap, but each movement around her only belonged to other members of the Order. They were all looking around just as she was. When they saw no obvious signs of Death Eaters, their movements stilled and they silently watched the house. Not one of the Order members had uttered a single word, and the only sounds on the air were those of a soft evening breeze through the treetops and a dog barking in the distance. Hermione pointed at Harry's stag Patronus as it rounded the corner of the house to alert each group to enter the house. The Death Eaters had already gone, so it was time, once again, to assess the damage done to her parents' home. She was relieved just to see that it wasn't burning when they arrived, but she had an even stronger sense of dread of the unknown. The Death Eaters had already displayed their increased numbers and their knowledge of her monitoring wards, and she had a terrible feeling that there was at least one more message they wished to convey. Draco rested his free hand on the small of Hermione's back and gently guided her forward. They were one of the first groups to gather at the back door, but waited until everyone was together before they entered. They peered cautiously to their right and left as they entered the darkened house and quietly made their way to the sitting room. There had been no agreement to do so, but they were all led there by foreboding intuition. Hermione and Draco's eyes both moved automatically to the charred letters that still marred the floral wallpaper. "We want the boy." There, above the cold black letters, blazed a new, still smoldering message. "We have the girl. We want the boy," Pansy read softly. "They don't mean—" Hermione pressed her hand tightly over her mouth to stifle a sob. The message was clear and precisely what she and the others had feared. After reading the message only once, her eyes fell upon the other new addition to the wall. Above the parchment, bearing Aurelian's illustration, was a dark mass of hair, held together with an elastic band, and staked to a dagger to the wall. "No! Katie!" Blaze breathed. He stepped forward and reached out toward Katie's severed ponytail, but pulled back just before touching it. His hand shook, and he looked like his knees might buckle at any moment. He hadn't known her long, but they had become quite close. They both entered the Order at the same time, and became partners, sharing their thoughts and feelings with one another. In that short time together they had become friends, close partners, and possibly more. There were no words to describe the terrible fear and pain that the message brought him. Hermione closed her eyes and allowed the tears to flow down her cheeks as she envisioned Katie writhing under the point of Bellatrix's wand. Everyone was shaken by their silent mourning when Harry lunged forward. He snatched Katie's ponytail, jerking the dagger from the wall, and threw the blade onto the floor. When he turned to face his comrades, his eyes were blazing and his chest rose and fell quickly as he tried to maintain control of his fury. "Headquarters! Now!" Harry seized Pansy's wrist and disapparated without warning. When Hermione and Draco arrived at Grimmauld Place only a second later, they found Pansy standing on the stoop, blinking in shock. Draco gave her a quick pat on the arm as he raced into the house after Harry and Hermione, the other Order members streaming in after them. "Oh, you're back," Molly said with relief when she saw Harry enter. "Is everyone all right?" Harry didn't pause as he continued past her and down to the kitchen. Hermione glanced up at her as she passed, but couldn't find the words to answer. Katie was most certainly not all right. "Our lot is safe," Arthur gently assured his wife. He lifted Aurelian into his arms and carried the toddler downstairs with the others. The entire group made their way in and shuffled around the edges of the room, not a one taking a seat at the large table. Harry paced furiously in front of the fireplace with his wand sparking in one hand, while the other tightly clutched Katie's long black hair. His jaw was set and his eyes on fire. The turbulent torrents of rage and pain swirled around him, and all watched silently, waiting for him to speak. After many moments, Aurelian was the one to break the silence. "Mummy?" Aurelian climbed out of Mr. Weasley's arms and started toward his mother. Molly quickly reached out and tenderly took his arm. She didn't know what had happened, but with the tears in some of their eyes and the violence in Harry's step, she thought it best to keep Aurelian's distance from it. "Fuck, Potter, what are we doing just standing here? We've got to go get her," Blaze demanded, taking a step forward in the crowd to make himself seen. "Fuck, Blaze, you don't think I know that?" Harry shouted, throwing Katie's ponytail onto the kitchen table. "Katie?" Mrs. Weasley's whispered voice wavered, and she looked to her husband for confirmation. His hard, curt nod was enough to spark her tears. "Then what are we doing here? We have to go save her," Blaze said forcefully. He, having steered clear of the last war, had never experienced the grief that many of the others had. This was a hard blow. He was close to Katie. She was his partner, and he took it personally. Never had he felt such heartrending grief, and he allowed it to transform into rage, a rage that Harry seemed to share. "I don't bloody know what to do. That's why we're here. I'm trying to think. You want to rush off and get her, but we don't even know where she is," Harry bellowed. "If they want an exchange, then they expect us to know where to go. The Lestrange place," Blaze said as though it were obvious. "You're right. They expect an exchange, but we're not making an exchange. You want us to just rush into the Lestrange place with wands drawn and just hope she's there? We may only have one chance, and we're not going to fuck it up with a piss-poor plan like that," Harry argued. "Then what is your plan?" "I told you that I don't have one. I don't know what to do. If you have a good suggestion, then spit it out. If not, then shut up and let me think," Harry roared. "Mummy," Aurelian whimpered pitifully. He looked nervously up at Molly and broke loose from her grasp. He raced to his mother's side and clung to her cloak. "Mummy, what happening?" Hermione looked down at the frightened little boy and tenderly ran his fingers through his hair. "Mummy crying." "Molly, can you please take Ori upstairs and give him a sleep draft?" Hermione asked, more tears dripping from her chin. "No, Mummy, my stay with you," he pleaded. "This is no place for little boys right now, love," Hermione replied softly, kneeling in front of him and stroking his cheek. "I know you're tired, and you need your rest." "Your mummy is right," Molly said, stroking his hair and taking his hand. Hermione placed a kiss upon his forehead and returned to the conversation. She didn't know how she'd ever be able to thank Molly enough for her support. She felt guilty toward Aurelian, but she just didn't know what else to do. "Okay, let's just all calm down a bit," Bill suggested evenly. "We're not going to get anywhere by shouting at each other. Believe it or not, Blaze, we're all worried about Katie. We just have to talk this through calmly and logically so we can come up with a plan. Now, are we sure the Lestrange house is where they're expecting an exchange?" "Yes," Fred answered. "It's where they wanted me to take Aurelian earlier. It's where they'll expect us to go." "I agree," said Ron, "but I doubt they're keeping her there now. They'll expect us to rush in. My guess is that they only have a small group there waiting, and when they see we're not rushing in to fight, they'll call for Bellatrix, Katie, and the rest. It's the way they work." "Then why don't we look like we're not showing up for a fight? Let's go looking like we only want to discuss terms, then draw wands once they've showed us Katie," Blaze suggested, fighting to keep under control. "They'd kill her on spot," Ginny said flatly. "Don't look at me like that, Blaze. I'm not trying to make this harder. We might only get one chance. For Katie's safety, we need to plan this through carefully." "I doubt they'll even show Katie unless they see Aurelian," Percy said heavily. Silence filled the room as they privately searched for solutions and fell deeper into despair when no answers came. "What if," Blaze started tentatively, "what if we brought Aurelian with us? We could allow her to see him, and as soon as they bring Katie out, the one with Aurelian separates immediately." "No!" Several voices chorused their disapproval. "It's too risky. There's no way we're going to let Aurelian leave the house," said Harry. His blazing fury had calmed considerably, and he simply looked and sounded worn and overwhelmed by heaviness. Blaze, too, looked a broken man without his flaring rage. "Well, what if—" Pansy started timidly. "Go on," Draco encouraged her when she stopped. "Well, I was thinking, what if they only thought we brought Aurelian with us?" she continued hesitantly. "He's about the size of a house elf. What if we were to dress one of them in his shield cloak, with the hood up, from a distance? They wouldn't know." "It's a good idea, really, but what if they ask us to take the hood down?" Ginny asked. "You've also forgotten one very important fact. You can't give a house elf clothes," Draco reminded her. Pansy looked down at the floor in embarrassment, and Draco set a hand on her shoulder to comfort her. "It was a good idea. Never hold back a suggestion. One idea could always spark another," Harry encouraged. "And I think it has," said Fred, exchanging looks with George. It only took a look for the two of them to know they were on the same page. "We want to show Aurelian without bringing him. What if one of us were to play him?" "It'd be brilliant, but I think everyone here is a bit tall for that, don't you?" Ron said dryly. "No," You're talking about Polyjuice Potion, aren't you? Hermione asked in surprise. Indeed we are, Fred said with a small lopsided smile. It'd be perfect except for the fact that it takes over a month to brew. We don't have that kind of time, Harry replied, gripping his forehead in an attempt to soothe the throbbing headache. No, it wouldn't work if we needed to brew it. But if one were to have some on hand, asked George. Do you? Hermione asked hopefully. It was, as Harry said, a perfect plan. It was the best they had, and she was desperately hoping they weren't leading her on. Indeed we do, said Fred. We always try to keep some in stock, George explained. Never know when it might help to be someone else. For business purposes only, of course, Fred added. And just what kind of business do you conduct that you would need to be someone else? Molly had sternly inquired with her hands on her hips. The twins hadn't seen her come back into the room, and they both donned appropriate masks of shame. Whether they were genuine or not, only the two of them knew. I don't really think now is the right time, Mum, Fred answered. Molly still looked at her twin boys suspiciously, but let the matter drop. They were right. There was no time to spare for such concerns at that time. Whatever the reason they had the Polyjuice Potion, it was a miracle tool for them at that moment. That's brilliant, said Ron. Hope was building inside of him and each other person in the room. The question now is who's going to play Ori? I will, Draco firmly declared. He's my son. I'll go as him. I'll accept no arguments. Then none will be given, Harry answered before anyone had the chance to protest. George and Fred, go get the potion. Be quick and cautious. I'm going to see Kingsley. We'll rally the Aurors and the MLE squad. This ends tonight.